All right, guys, welcome back to the Pocket Mads channel. It's Maddie here, and welcome back to Meta Monday, the weekly series where we analyze the Pokemon Pocket metagame and keep you guys up to date on everything going on in the competitive world of Pokemon Pocket. This past weekend was PMPT number 24. The 24th Community Pocket Mads tournament. We had over 300 players compete, which is pretty impressive when you consider the fact that the ranked season is about to wrap up. They had multiple other large tournaments happening this weekend, and it was, of course, the last weekend of the season. So very impressive. And again, big shout out to all you guys who competed, and a massive shout out to our caster team, our judge team, and our moderator teams over on the Discord that kind of, make this all happen every week. Always a ton of fun. We're gonna, I don't even have it up on the screen. Give me 1 second. All right, sorry about that. I literally didn't even notice as I was recording that I didn't even have the the webpage up on the screen. My bad. Anyway, before we get into the results of our tournament this past weekend, you gotta go register for PMPT number 25, which is the first tournament of the next season, which will be coming out, I believe, on the 25th. Is that when Mega Shine is coming out? I have no idea. B2B is the set list. We've talked a little bit about the trailer and those cards. What I like to do on Meta Mondays at the end of the season is sort of speculate as to, what's going to happen when we get into next season, Although we don't have a ton of information, so it's kind of hard to do that. Tomorrow, hopefully we get like the set list leaked or revealed or more information, and then we can kind of make a video about that. If not, we'll have to just wait and see. But I believe Mega Shine comes out on Wednesday, which is going to be 2 days from now, which is exciting. But anyway, register for PMPT number 25. Mega Shine will be legal. It is this Saturday, March 28th at noontime. $200 in the prize pool. Anyway, let's dive into the standings from this past weekend's tournament, PMPT number 24. And here they are, guys. These are the final standings of the tournament this weekend. This is the final form of this season, of the Paldean Wonders season. I know a lot of people had some very, dramatic, interpretations of this set when it was initially announced. I know that I did, but yeah, Paldean Wonders had a ton of really strong cards, and I think that the metagame was very much changed, pretty dramatically this season, and it was a pretty refreshing season, quite frankly. But this is sort of the final form. All of the decks that we're going to see doing well in this tournament are kind of all of the top decks in the current metagame right now as we go into the next season. So we'll have to see if Mega Shine and the new cards changes that even further. We don't really know exactly what's going to happen. I know they revealed Gengar and they revealed Charizard. A lot of people don't think Gengar is going to be very good, but again, we lack the context and the full set to know what the support around Gengar is going to be. And I think Charizard is just a good card, quite frankly. I think Charizard's going to be really good, and we're going to have to prepare for that. But anyway, the standings here. Macho Man from Portugal, 11-2. First place with Bellibolt and Zeraora. This is sort of a turbo or aggro Bellibolt deck, double Zeraora, double Bellibolt. He was playing one Oricorio. We'll break down that list in a little bit. He hit Juntian from Germany, who went 10-2-1 in grand finals, and he was playing Suicune Excalibur. So towards the end of the season, Suicune Excalibur definitely opening up as a much more, quality choice than it was, I guess, in the second and third weeks, right? That's the weird story around Suicune Excalibur. Certainly one of the strongest decks in the entire game. I think we have to look forward to that going into next season. It might also have a pretty decent shot to do well into Charizard, which is very interesting. I think Charizard, the new Charizard X, will actually struggle a little bit into Suicune Excalibur. Yeah, so really strong in the first week, got counterplayed really heavily in the second and third weeks of the season. Going into the fourth week, as we see right now, I thought that Suicune and Excalibur was a really good choice. What's really interesting, and I don't know if, because on Friday, I make my videos talking about the best decks that you should be playing for ranked, but it also translates to the tournament metagame, because they really are quite similar. So all of the decks that I recommended people play in that Friday video all ended up being sort of the core strategies that did well in the tournament this weekend, and I don't know if that's a coincidence or not, but I'm a little bit proud of that. So Turbo Bellibolt getting first place, I called that out, that it was actually a really decent choice right now, even though less people were playing Oricorio. Suicune Excalibur back on the rise again. We see it in grand finals. Third place, we have Froggy X Momo from France, playing Mega Steelix and Indeedee. And if you remember on Friday, I literally told people, I was like, Mega Steelix is one of the best decks to play currently right now in this late game, or this late season metagame, which is really odd, because this is a deck that's sort of been here for a little bit, kind of poked itself into the metagame. It was sort of like, hey, I'm here, but should you play this deck? It was hard to tell, but I really going into this last week, I thought that Steelix was performing very well. And as we see here, not only Froggy X Momo in 3rd place in top 4 with Mega Steelix, but also Dash MD in 5th place from the United States, also playing Mega Steelix. So, Steel type is kind of back. Mega Steelix with Indeedee, that tank stall deck strategy, the damage reduction, heavy helmet, Indeedee, all of that stuff. A really quality deck in the card metagame, and it's very interesting to see. In 4th place, we had Imp Brendan, also from France, 9 and 3, top 4, playing Dark Greninja. I think Dark Greninja is definitely still a solid deck. It's interesting that the 2 ways that people play Greninja at the end of the season are, neither of them are with Suicune. They're either with Absol and Darkrai and Shingling as a control deck, or you're playing it with Altaria as a bit of a high roll version of Altaria. And as we did see down there, Riquelme Matos from Brazil, and then Flippin 11 from Chile, 10th and 11th place was playing Altaria Greninja, but Imp Brendan playing Dark Greninja got top 4. Again, Dash MD 5th place with Steelix. Another Suicune, Baxcalibur in 6th place. That's Mashu, TCG from Austria. So many different countries in the standings. It's really cool to see every week. Again, I just want to thank you guys from all across the world for playing. It's really fun. Pokemon Pocket's a great game. The community is awesome. And shout out to everybody from across the world for competing. Down here, we had DG Marco from Chile, also playing Turbo Bellybolt, right, with Zero Aura. I don't know if he was playing Oricorio, but he got 7th place. So Bellybolt Zero Aura finds its way in 1st place, as well as 7th place, and then down here in 13th place. So very interesting. We did have one Magnezone in Bellybolt. So a Magnezone Oricorio deck did sneak in. This is Pamnardo from Brazil, 8 and 3. So I know that the 1st place deck list was playing 1 copy of Oricorio, but Magnezone Oricorio as a core concept for a deck, did make it into top 8 and 8th place there. Dark Greninja, 9th place. Like I said, the double Altaria Greninja. So this might be the first week in a very, very long time that Altaria did not make it into top 8 to any degree. That's very surprising. I know that we have a ton of great decks in the metagame right now. I know that Steelix might be able to deal with Altaria pretty well. Oricorios can kind of deal with Altaria well, but at the end of the day, to not see any Altaria, Mega Altaria in top 8 this weekend is a very big surprise. I think the probability of that happening was probably pretty low, but it just goes to show how many different strong decks there are in this current metagame. At this point in Pokemon Pocket, I think we have more quality decks than ever before. We just have so many strong cards. And we saw that reflected in last week's metagame as well. But yeah, no Altaria in top 8 is crazy. If we go down here, we do see some more Suicune and Baxcalibur. We see some more Bellybolt down here. There was a Dragon Arcana Altaria sneaking in here to top 16, but lots of Suicune, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Suicunes in top 16 is definitely pretty impressive. 3 Turbo Bellybolts, double Steelix, a couple Altarias, a couple Dark Greninjas. So that really is kind of the scope of the metagame. There's about 5 or 6 decks, I would say, right now that are really all kind of top tier strategies, but we'll have to see at the end of the video when we break down the metagame data, which decks actually did the best from an average win rate perspective. We did have a Gourgeist Altaria here in 19th place. This is still a very, very good deck, a very consistent deck, but hasn't really placed extremely well the last couple of weeks in a lot of tournaments just because there's less Oricorio for the Gourgeist to kind of farm. We did see a Blaziken in 24th place, Pokeburst Rush from Canada, so, kind of a rare Blaziken sighting. Blaziken just isn't that popular, but it really is a quality deck. A couple more Steelixes as we kind of go down here into top 32 territory. And we did see a couple Hydreigon, but no Hydreigon anywhere in the top 32 is crazy. But a couple of them down here, 34th place, 36th place, and then we had a Meowscarada here in 37th place. And that's kind of the metagame, right? So, I mean, again, there's the same sort of 5-6 decks. It's late in the season, so the metagame's definitely a little bit condensed, meaning that people know what they should be playing. But what's cool this season particularly is that there are relatively a lot of decks that people feel like they should be playing, which is really cool. And now, whether or not you like all of these decks or you enjoy playing any of them is a different story. I know some people might not like the decks available to them at the top of the metagame, but you can't dispute the fact that there are several. Normally, we usually have 2, maybe 3. Now, right now, we have 5 or 6. So it really is kind of cool to see how much Paldean Wonders really changed the metagame. It's kind of crazy. But let's break down the deck lists here. In first place, let's take a look at Macho Man's deck. This is Turbo Bellybolt with Zero Aura, and then 1 Oricorio. And again, we've seen the what is this, the 7th Pokemon in this deck list change around quite a bit. Some people only play 6. But a lot of people play Pichu in place of this Oricorio, but Macho Man choosing to play Oricorio double electric generator with electrical cord. A very, very cool strategy. Yeah, just kind of a more unique way to play this deck list. Still playing Training Arena and 1 Rocky Helmet for some extra damage output. Sabrina Cyrus in here, 1 Copycat, 1 Lycia. And honestly, the 1 Lycia I think is still correct, considering that we're only playing 250 HP Pokemon, but 1 Lycia double Pokeball is really interesting and adds a lot more consistency to the deck. Lycia proving to be honestly one of the best cards in the entire game for decks that can use Lycia, which is really cool. Double Electric Generator, Electrical Cord, Oricorio, Belly Bolt Turbo. So again, I do think that, at the end of the day, if you're playing double Zero Aura, double Belly Bolt, double Generator, you're an extremely strong going second deck anyway. And that's kind of the reality here. It's interesting to see Electrical Cord. I know that it does make a lot of sense with Belly Bolt, especially in the strategy where you kind of get into a Belly Bolt and then you want a second Belly Bolt after the first one goes down because they have a lot of HP, but Electrical Cord is going to conserve multiple lightning energies, which allows you to just continuously hitting for that 140 or 150 mark with Training Arena. So a really interesting build here. I think Belly Bolt's going to be extremely relevant moving forward. I think that Charizard is very dangerous in a lot of different ways, but the thing about Charizard is that it's a 3-prize Pokemon. It's a mega Pokemon. So even though you might be able to get, one-hit KO some Pokemon, there's going to be a very particular damage threshold. I think Charizard has 220 HP. Am I wrong about that? It's either 220 or like 210. I think it's 220, but it's a stage 2 Pokemon, so you can play Lily with it, which means that with Lily and 220 HP, that's 280, right? So there's going to be a very predominant damage threshold next season to deal with Charizard consistently, which is going to be about 240 damage, I would imagine. Because again, if you hit Charizard once, it's going to one-hit KO you on the backside, right? So it's going to be a little bit scary. Charizard's going to be a little bit scary to deal with, but at the end of the day, I think it's going to be a really, really good card. But I think Belly Bolt and Suicune will both do somewhat well into Charizard, specifically, I think because that they are non-3-prize Pokemon. And of course that they can hit for decent amounts of damage, right? Suicune maybe less so. That's going to be an interesting thing to think about, actually. Because I don't know if Suicune will do enough damage for Charizard. I know it hits for weakness, but I mean, Suicune, like Belly Bolt just does a lot of damage. It's kind of like the best, 2-prize Pokemon like in the game right now. Tons of support. Oricorio was also going to wall Charizard, so it's something to keep in mind. But that's the only we can't really think about Gengar from a competitive setting because we just don't know what the entire deck list strategy will look like with Gengar. But Charizard, we have the whole package laid out, right? We have Charmeleon, we have Flame Patch, we got a lot of stuff that's going to pair well with Charizard, and 100 damage, and then if you're below half HP, you deal 180. So it's going to be a little bit of a crazy thing to deal with. But anyway, shout out to Belly Bolt, a really, really cool deck. Very cool. Love to see it. Belly Bolt, absolutely insane. Let's look at Juntian's deck. I can't say the name. From Germany. Second place. This is the highest placing Suicune and Baxcalibur deck. I think some people might be kind of tired of this deck at this point of the season because certainly one of the most popular decks in the game for tournament play, but definitely in ranked battles, right? Now, the thing about Suicune is that it's very strong, but it does have a lot of decks that it can't really beat very consistently. All of the lightning type Belly Bolt decks do quite well into Suicune. Also, I think it was Altaria and Greninja, I think, beats this deck. So very, very powerful, kind of a gatekeeper deck, beats like all of the decks that aren't really considered top tier meta decks, but struggles against some of the other ones. So I think very fitting for this deck list to kind of make it into grand finals and then lose to Belly Bolt, but very standard as far as the list goes. Although it's a little bit different in the sense that we're playing 1 Rocky Helmet in here. I don't know what we cut for the Rocky Helmet. I can't tell. Maybe we cut a giant cape. I think typically you play double capes in here. I don't know, actually. I don't really remember off the top of my head. 1 Copycat, 1 Irida, 1 Mars is pretty standard. Double Candy, double Pokeball, double Research. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what we cut. The inflatable boat's in here pretty often, and the starting planes is in here pretty often. Maybe a Copycat? Did we cut a Copycat? What did we cut? Oh, no, he's not playing Sabrina or Cyrus in the deck. That's crazy. So he just decided to not play any Gust in here and played an extra Rocky Helmet. I wonder if that extra damage was really relevant. That's really kind of cool. Okay, interesting. Yeah, no Cyrus and no Sabrina. I was looking at this deck list. I was like, what is different here? What's missing? No Cyrus, no Sabrina. No Cyrus is okay because Champao can snipe the bench. But a lot of people still play Sabrina in this deck because of how useful Sabrina is, especially in the early game. But no Gust cards, no Sabrina Cyrus is very surprising. The number one Suicune deck this season, not playing any Gust cards is crazy. That's not something I would have expected. 3 different tool cards in here. Giant Cape plus Starting Plains, Suicune, 180 HP is always crazy. Inflatable Boat gives Chien-Pao and Frigback's free retreat, so you can get into Suicune to draw those cards. And then Rocky Helmet, man, the Rocky Helmet, maybe it's, I don't know, maybe it's relevant. Very, very interesting. A very good quality deck list. I still think that basic, or not even basic, but like 2-prize Pokemon kind of run the metagame still. They really do. Like, I know there's a lot of Megas that see play, and maybe that changes next season in Mega Shine, but like Suicune, Belly Bowl, Darkrai, there's a lot. Like Chien-Pao, there's a lot of these like 2-prize non-Mega EX Pokemon that are still very, very good and kind of run the metagame. But there you go. Interesting. Let's take a look at Froggy X Momo's deck. This is the highest placing Steelix, 3rd place. I wanted Steelix to go all of the way, quite frankly, but I think at the end of the day, Steelix isn't the most like consistent deck in the world. It's actually a pretty consistent deck, but it's always kind of getting up on like turn 4 and sometimes earlier, but like you kind of do sometimes rely on the more RNG aspects of Pokemon Pocket with this deck. Double lucky Ice Pop, right? So sometimes you are reliant on kind of getting a little bit lucky with the Ice Pop. And, if you get into a matchup, if you just draw, if you kind of just move a little bit too slowly, maybe you lead in DD, maybe you don't get the Ice Pops off as much as you want, then, the deck just doesn't really do what you kind of want it to do, at least early enough. But it has the potential to, which is what's crazy about this deck list, right? You have Brox, you have the Ice Pops, you can get the Indeedis on the bench, put the Poncho on it. It really is a very, very strong deck. It's crazy to me that like it took this specific combination of cards to make Mega Steelix relevant. If you really think about Mega Steelix, it's kind of crazy. It's not a weak Pokemon. It's just like, okay, 4 energies, 2 steel, 2 colorless. Like I know it takes 20 less damage from attacks. 120 is a little bit low in terms of the damage output. It's got a lot of HP, and it just so happens that between Indeedee EX's healing, Brock accelerating energies, Lucky Ice Pop healing, Heavy Helmet damage reduction, and then Protected Poncho kind of keeping Indeedees protected on the bench, it just has like the perfect combination of cards that fit into a 20 card list that make it that relevant. And I think that's pretty cool. And I think it's kind of the number one example of these types of decks that's done well. We've seen, some Snorlax in previous seasons. Guzzlord popped up a little bit this season, but Steelix really is like the number one example of that, which we just didn't have for so long. I don't even remember like the last time we had like a true tank deck in Pokemon Pocket that was like meta relevant. I really don't remember. Like it's kind of crazy to think. I mean, Suicune was probably the closest example of that back in the day with like Greninja. But yeah, I mean, I like Mega Steelix. It's kind of cool. It's just a cool deck. It's very different from every other deck in the metagame. Very annoying to play against, I would imagine, especially with those Ice Pops. But yeah, I mean, Brock is a OG card from the original expansion is crazy. But the rest of these cards are pretty new. Like Indeedee's new, Steelix is new, Lucky Ice Pop, Poncho, Heavy Helmet. It's fun to see a deck really utilize like a lot of the new cards to be like a new strategy. So shout out to Steelix, man. That deck list is pretty standard at this point. I think people are all kind of playing the same Steelix deck. Let's take a look at Imp Brendan's deck here from France. 9-3 Dark Greninja. So the highest placing Greninja deck was Dark Greninja. The highest placing Absol deck. This is really the only way Absol has sort of remained in the metagame. Not many Hydreigon seeing play. But Dark Greninja has always been a good deck. And I think that this season particularly, it's just a really good card. Dark Greninja always did well into Altaria Greninja, and I think sometime in the middle of the season, Altaria Greninja really rose as a prominent deck list. So Dark Greninja kind of counterplayed that, but it also ended up doing pretty well, like into things like Oricorio Magnezone, decent into Suicune and stuff. It just really kind of cemented itself as a solid deck. What's like really tricky though about this is that I don't think are going to be able to beat Steelix. I don't know what that matchup's like. He hit any Steelix. He lost to Suicune, but like, I just don't imagine there's enough damage on the board for you to get over Steelix. Like maybe if like, I don't know. I don't know if you can. It's kind of crazy. But this is a fun deck. I call it high roll control because it is, a bit of a high roll deck with Greninja, as all Greninja decks are, but, Chingling Lock, Greninja, bench damage here, Darkrai pings, Absol discarding supporter cards. Really, the entire deck is based around kind of controlling the game and like the pace of the game, And that's also really cool. A very unique deck, again, in the history of Pokemon Pocket, to see something like this. And that's what's cool, is how different, how varying the strategies really are in the metagame. Every deck does feel pretty unique, I would say. and very strong. There's so many strong decks. But yeah, this is pretty standard. I like the Mars with the Chingling. You know, double copycat, double research is just the fundamental draw engine. A lot of people have strong opinions about the whole copycat stuff. I do think that it drastically changed the metagame when copycat got released, but I think that it's honestly still a bit better than just sort of having to play Suicune, honestly. Yeah, very crazy. Is Charizard gonna play Entei? It might play Entei, bro. The new Charizard X is going to be a big problem. The more I think about it, the more I realize that deck is going to be, it's going to be something, man. It really is. Like, I don't know if I'm ready for it. Maybe it won't be that good. I don't know. But anyway, Dark Greninja, pretty solid. Pretty solid. I am curious how Gengar is going to be able to deal with all these decks. A lot of these decks do kind of rely on supporter cards like pretty heavily. The thing about Gengar is like I just don't know what they could add to that entire package to make it playable. Like I would be genuinely surprised. Somebody had a really interesting mention. If you guys remember the Morpeko card that got announced where it does like 70 damage for 2 dark energies and then you move those dark energies to the bench. Somebody told me that they think there's going to be like a Marnie, a supporter card, like a Marnie supporter card that's going to generate or accelerate dark energy specifically to Morpeko. So you use the supporter card, set up Morpeko, attack, and then move them to Gengar. Like that could be kind of fun. Anyway, I'm going on a tangent. Let's scroll all the way down here to Pamnardo in 8th place. This is the highest placing Magnezone and Bellybolt deck, which is Mag Choreo, and I know that the Limitless categorizes this as a Bellybolt deck, but at its core, it's just the newer version. It's just the new way to play Magnezone or Choreo, and I do think that this is still an incredibly strong deck. It was so dominant in that like first, second, and third week of the season. Kind of fell off towards the end for sure, but like it's definitely a really, really good deck. It's got everything going for it. And I know there's a lot of moving pieces here. It's not the fastest deck in the entire world, but Magnezone or Choreo was never about being like a fast, aggressive deck. It was just about being a very consistent and a very solid deck in the mid to late game and really kind of picking particular matchups that it just had really high win rates against, which I think is sort of still where Magnezone or Choreo will fall. And I think a lot of people are kind of tired of it, but I think the reality of Oricorio and it being a single prize Pokemon, it just fits really well with Magnezone. And when they buffed the entire Magnezone package a couple of seasons ago, I think it just sort of cemented that Magnezone's going to be around for a very long time. You know, Clement's in here, the new Magnezone, it's just really good. It really is just a strong strategy. And then Bellybolt is broken. Bellybolt, I don't know if we're ever going to see a massive decline in Bellybolt, at least for a while, unless maybe like a fighting type deck comes in that just hard counters it. Bellybolt is just such a good card. But yeah, nothing too crazy here. Pretty standard, I think, as far as this stuff goes. Kind of one of the only decks that plays Guzma right now, and I assume that's probably mostly for like Rocky Helmets on Oricorio, but I think you got to play Guzma anyway. Of course, Suicune plays there's a lot of tool cards. Every deck sort of plays tool cards, except for this deck, apparently. But Guzma, I think, is a really cool inclusion. Another thing to talk about as well, going into next season, and we'll talk about it more when the set gets announced, but like we have so many trainer cards, specifically supporter cards. There's only so much room you can squeeze into your deck. Like 20 cards is a very restrictive limit in Pokemon Pocket, and like every set there's more supporter cards, like more and more, and it just becomes so difficult to like justify playing these new supporter cards because like you only have so much room and you have to compete against every other supporter card that's currently available. So as you see, like most decks aren't playing that many supporter cards. Here is going to be Raquel Mimados, the highest placing Altaria Greninja deck list. Not going to be anything super surprising here. He is playing the one rare candy, one Frogadier. So that is something that we do see to help combat the other Chingling matchups. Of course, you do lose to Dark Greninja pretty prominently because of the Chingling on Chingling competition at the early game, as we've talked about a lot. So one Frogadier is interesting. It makes the deck a little bit less high roll, a little bit more consistent, I would say, on turn 3, turn 4. But, you know, it's really the difference between this and just playing double rare candy is very slim, other than, of course, the scenarios where you're going up against other Chinglings. And even then, like, the Frogadier is not that useful, unless you just sort of, like, draw it on turn 2. You know what I mean? Because either way, you're going to get Greninja out on, like, turn 3 or 4 anyway. You still have Swablu to put Chingling asleep to kind of get the rare candy off like you typically would in this deck list. So, but yeah. But like, take a look at like this deck in particular. Like most decks are always going to play double research, double copycat unless something better comes along, which again, like leaves very little room for other supporter cards. So, you know, any deck that can play Lissia will play Lissia because it's one of the best consistency cards in the game. And then you have Sabrina and you have Cyrus and stuff. So it's like things like Guzma and even May and all these other supporter cards like are very tough to fit into decks. Like they have to be specifically useful for your strategy, right? Like how we play Brock and Steelix and whatnot, or like Piers in Obstagoon, like things like that. You know what I mean? But anyway, yeah, it's Altaria Greninja. I'm totally sick of this deck. If this completely got deleted from the metagame, I wouldn't even mind. I've just seen it and it's been too much. It's been too long here. And it's a very annoying deck and it always has been with the sleep and with Chingling and everything. It's just a ridiculous deck list, but hopefully not as relevant next season, but I mean, who knows really at the end of the day. At 16th place in the last deck we're going to take a look at here is going to be Andre 941 CS from Spain. This is a Dragon Arcana. No, it's not. Okay. I thought it was. Is it? It might be. No, it's not. Okay. I thought this was Dragon Arcana, but this is basically just like Toolbox Altaria or like Daycare Altaria. We have seen this a little bit in the past. Like, the cool thing about playing a deck list like this is that you, again, really utilize Lissia and you can just pull a ton of Pokemon out of your deck, and it makes the Altaria strategy itself very, very consistent. Again, like that, there's nothing really in the deck for Oricorio, which is why we have to play the Do the Wave Altaria, and I guess Tyrogue. Tyrogue can actually deal with Oricorio pretty well, but again, at the end of the day, like a strategy like this is just a little bit suspect. Like Altaria is cool because it can't just carry decks. This is a deck that's playing a lot of bench damage with Jirachi and Elekid and Double Cyrus, which I love. I do love that for sure. But again, Protective Poncho's in the game. You know, Do the Wave Altaria is not a bad card, but it will get 1-hit KO'd by Magnezone, which doesn't really help you at all in the matchup anyway. Yeah, you know, it's cool. Baby Pokemon definitely deserve to see more play. I would like a card that maybe just sort of buffs baby Pokemon specifically, because like, I mean, I guess maybe it would be too good because Chingling is so broken, but there's a lot of really cool baby Pokemon. There's the energy acceleration ones. Again, Tyrogue, Elekid is really cool. Yeah, I think the baby Pokemon have a place in the metagame. They typically see more play with Mega Pokemon, yeah, I mean, I don't know. You know, I guess we'll see where things go in the future, but a very unique deck list. Very, very cool. I do like Dragon Arcana. I would like to see more Dragon Arcana Altaria, but I don't know if people really choose to play it anymore. But yeah, there you go. Here's a relatively interesting version of Mega Altaria. And again, he did go 7-3. I made, 16th place. So he made it into top 16. 7-3. Shout out to him. Shout out to Andre from Spain. And yeah, guys, that's all of the decks in top 16, or at least all of the top different decks in top 16. Let me take a look at this. Yeah, so this is the other way that people are kind of playing Turbo Belly Bolt. I would say like the more common version. This is with Pichu and no electrical cord. And he's playing 1 generator, 1 lucky ice pop, a double Rocky helmet. And the Pichu is really good, makes the deck very turbo. But again, Oricorio is definitely going to be really good in a lot of matchups as well. Yeah, anyway, quickly, I'm just going to take a look at the metagame data. I'm not going to spend too much time here, but I am kind of curious where these decks are sitting towards the end of the season. Suicune Baxcalibur, actually the most played deck at 14% meta share. This is not a tier 0 meta. It's the number 1 most played deck every week has changed, basically, which is crazy. But 14% and a 51.5% win rate is pretty solid. So decent performance from Suicune. Altaria Greninja, very much struggling. So just not a great weekend for Greninja here. Dark Greninja, though, did go 67 and 60, so a decent record. Turbo Belly Bolt, 78 and 73, so again, pretty decent. And then Altaria and Gourgeist here went 126 and 11, so actually really high average win rate for Altaria Gourgeist, but none of them placed very highly. That's typically what happens with this deck. It's got a very limited top end, but it's very consistent, right? It's a very sort of tempo-based deck list. It's not very high roll, which is why we don't see it maybe win that much, but always has a good win rate. Yeah, Magnezone or Oricorio struggling. Hydreigon struggling a little bit. And, you know, not a very inspiring performance this weekend from Hydreigon, but the 14 people that played Mega Steelix went 55 and 37. That is the highest win rate. That is, again, just the highest average win rate here on a smaller sample size, 4% of the tournament, but 58.5% win rate, the highest among any of these decks. If we filter by win rate, I guess the one Altaria player was pretty high. We had a Mawile player go 5 and 3. These are all one of scenarios, but out of any decks that weren't like one of, Steelix was by far the most successful here. As you see, 14 people played it. All these other decks are either 1 or like 2 people played them. So The sample size is a little bit too small to really justify. And then as we see here, Altaria Goregeist with a high average win rate. So something that might be really good for like ranked battles, but maybe not tournament play. And then Bellybolt Zera Aura also did well, and Suicune. And Dark Ninja, kind of. But everything else here just sort of didn't really have a great overall win rate. Now the win rates are all relative because people drop from the tournament or they just miss rounds and stuff. So like the win rates aren't technically accurate, but we still look at them because they're all relative to each other. You know what I mean? Like that's the reality of what the win rates are. So it's like, yes, like Suicune Excalibur actually had a higher win rate than 51.25% this weekend if you equate all of those other things. But the win rate is still relative to all of the other win rates, which also are factored by the same sort of downsides. So pretty cool to see. And the information is still relevant. Gardevoir here, when 13 and 12, I still think Gardevoir is actually very respectful deck in the current metagame. Blaziken as well. I know it did do very well, but probably pretty decent. I think, honestly, the number one thing to look forward next season probably is a revitalization of Fire. I think that people are probably going to swap the Charizard. They're going to love it either way, especially the shiny Mega Charizard X. People are just going to play it to play it. But I do think it's going to be a really strong deck. It might take a little while for us to kind of figure out the best way to play that new Charizard deck, but I certainly think Charizard's going to be pretty good, and maybe Gengar will be really good. We don't know. We just have no idea. We're going to have to wait for the full set release, but yeah, I think Oricorio will likely get a pretty decent boost early next season, as it always does at the beginning of seasons. But everything else here at the top in the metagame, things like Steelix, things like Altaria, things like Bellybolt, things like Suicune, we're going to have to see how those decks can compete and do into the new decks of the season, or vice versa, quite frankly, right? If a new deck comes into the metagame, whether that's Charizard or Gengar or something that they haven't revealed yet, which again, there's going to be several probably like very strong cards that they haven't even showed us yet. It's really going to come down to how do those decks perform into Suicune, Altaria, and Bellybolt, like predominantly, because those are, the things that are popular in the metagame. So we'll have to see. What's crazy here is that, yeah, look at this. So Altaria here was a combined, if you add Altaria Greninja and Altaria Goregeist, if you add these together, this was 25% of the tournament. And none of them made top 8, which is, again, very, very crazy. I don't know if we've really ever seen that before, honestly. Very interesting. But yeah, that's the tournament, guys. That's the end of the season. And honestly, let me know what you guys thought of this season. To me, it was a pleasant surprise. The next set it seems to be very different than Paldean Wonders. Gonna be very much like a collector set with all of the new shiny Pokemon. I'm sure there's going to be some crazy arts and stuff. So I think it'll be a really fun set to open. We're going to have to just wait and see how the set is going to perform from like a metagame competitive standpoint, and how much it's really going to change the competitive aspect of Pokemon Pocket. Because, I think a lot of players at this point probably just like actually like playing the game. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's a big portion of the community. I don't know how many. There's probably still a lot of casual players that are just opening packs, but yeah, we'll have to just wait and see. I think the new set should get leaked or data mined or even revealed possibly like sometime tomorrow. If not, then we'll have to wait for Wednesday. But once that does get revealed or leaked or data mined, we are going to do a full comprehensive set review here on the channel. So you're definitely going to want to stay tuned. This week, the next 2 weeks, realistically, are going to be a really big deal because so much is going to change. So you're going to want to stay tuned for that. And we'll keep you guys updated the entire way. Maybe we'll go live a little bit more. This month was very busy for me, honestly. I had vacation and I was gone. A lot of other things happened IRL, so I was very busy this month. But next month should be a little bit more settled. So maybe some live streams. We'll have to see. I don't know. But that's the video, guys. Let's wrap it up. Peace out. Have a good one. We'll see you guys later. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And yeah. Bye.